Oh, there he is.
What's going on?
It's becoming very clear that your podcast setup is very superior to mine.
How so?
Well, look at my background. It just looks like my video looks terrible because there's no color behind me.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
There's a
very
course you
dark.
can do. I was going to do this course by this guy. His name's Mo McRae,
Okay.
and he did all of the stuff for he does this stuff around online video presence and stuff like that. So
Send me that. I'll do it. The thing is, I've actually got some okay equipment here. It's just that I'm in a room that is like massive. If I turn the light on, I look like I'm getting shone on from the high heavens. You know what I mean?
yeah, I just sent you
So,
the link, mate. It's five
oh,
hundred
happy
bucks.
birthday,
But
by the way.
oh, thank you.
How good.
I'm 50.
Have you got a beer?
Yeah, yeah. I've got a beer. I've got a Big Shed Californicator.
Oh, very good. Okay, let's do a little.
What have
Oh,
you
God
got?
damn it. I've got, hang
See,
on.
that's that blurry. Those blurry backgrounds suck because
I agree, but it looks pretty shitty without it. So yeah, it's better for the screen grab. It's better. Okay,
what have you got?
very good. I've got the Mountain Culture Status Quo Pale Ale, which I noticed does not have an
Is it
independent
post?
beer label on it, which I'm not going to bring up tonight. Don't worry, I don't want to get
No,
ruin this
neither.
whole interview.
I've got a Hawkers here.
But
Neither does that, but this
oh, interesting.
does.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go, mate. Ooh, well, I
Yeah,
don't
that's
want to.
really interesting.
I don't want to start a fight, so I'm not going to bring it up. But I thought that was
Yeah.
interesting.
I'm a lover, not a fighter.
Yeah, no, same. Should we let her in rather than making her wait? Because
Oh, you
we've
don't want
got a
to dick
guest,
around?
don't we?
Okay. Yeah. Well, there we go. Okay, let's do it.
It's not all about you and your birthday, is it?
Well, fair enough. Okay.
Do you want to introduce the guest before you let them in, or are we
Yes.
just going
Okay.
to?
Well, she's on
Okay.
her way. So anyway, this evening we've got Kylie Lethbridge, who is the oh, I don't know if it's managing director or CEO or
CEO.
something like that. CEO of the Independent Brewers Association. And she's just sorting out her audio and that sort of thing. And there's going to be all these warnings going, it's being recorded. And then there's like, oh, there's an AI thing and that sort of thing. How are you, Kylie?
Hey, Steve, how are you?
Awesome. Call me Hendo because only my mum calls me
Well,
Steve. So
this is already a much more formal podcast than we've done before. You're being
yeah.
I'm going to
called
have a video
Steve.
call on Stephen.
Oh no, Stephen Patrick. That's what my mum says when I'm in trouble.
Oh God.
How you
Hello,
doing?
Dan. Hello, Hendo. How you doing?
Hello, how are you? Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Anytime. Cheers. Cheers
It's
to
good
a
to see you.
new.
What
Oh,
are
there
you
you go.
drinking there, by the way?
Let's get a screen grab of the beer.
I'm
There we go.
drinking a local. I live in regional Victoria, and these guys are relatively new. They're called the Lost Watering Hole in Lancefield. They're a
Oh,
cracker.
Very good.
what
They
style
found
of beer is that?
megafauna in Lancefield, like big native animals, big bones and stuff. So all their beers
Yeah.
are kind of themed based on mega fauna
Like
X,
big
Y, and Z.
platypuses and big emus and all that sort of thing.
Not a bad beer.
That's
What
fun.
style is it?
I think it's a Pilsner. No, it's a draft.
Was that a cat or a dog in the background?
That was a dog.
What's your
See,
dog? What's your dog's
this is
name?
why I blur the background, Hendo, you see? I'm gonna get back to the blurred background because it's just
Anybody that meets with me needs to handle the cat getting on the and the dog coming in and out. She's a boxer, Hendo.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us this evening, and at such short notice as well. And because there's been a lot happening this week and that sort of thing, and so hence the reason why I'm drinking a Big Shed beer, and I've got a Hawkers over here as well. So
nice.
And
it's
you'll
all
forgive
good.
me because I'm doing a lot of talking at the minute, and I've been a little poorly with some virus. So if my voice starts to go, please forgive me.
Oh,
Oh
that's
no.
okay.
Well, yeah,
That's all
thank you for
right.
coming on. We're actually, I'm sure this week is a very busy week for you. My first question had nothing to do with beer. I want to know if you've got any association with my favorite winery, Lethbridge.
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I wish I had because
Okay.
their wine is gorgeous. Yeah,
It's so good.
their Chardonnay is one of my favorites, like ever. But no, not a relation. They're kind of the west of Victoria to me. I've been to the winery; it's fantastic. But no, we're not related. If we are, it's very distant.
Just
Well,
fake it till you
that's
make it. Just walk around with a bottle,
100%.
go, yeah, this is my winery. And
I would definitely be doing the skin contact Pinot Gris is like my favorite wine. It's not cheap, but it's extremely good.
Nothing that's boutique, that it's not a huge winery, so nothing that's no boutique in that size and scale is ever super cheap, but it value, I think, for a gorgeous mouth. It's wonderful. I agree.
I also have a serious question as my first proper question. In in the recent IBA federal government submission, you guys wrote the environment for independent brewing is dire. So what's going on in the beer industry?
I think you guys talked about it last week, and since then, we've had Hawkers and Big Shed go into voluntary administration. Those are the things that you see. Those are the things that hit the media. What the general public, I don't mean the two of you, but what's not seen is those that are just quietly closing their door, those that are restructuring down because they've got empty tanks, they've reduced production, they've cut back to core range, so staff are losing their jobs. And that's across the country. Nobody, there doesn't seem to be a lot of breweries that are immune to the layer upon layer of impacts that are hitting the industry at the minute. So, I do, and I wouldn't use that language if it wasn't true. We fought, I and the IBA and breweries fought tooth and nail through COVID, but this is super different. This feels different, and on the whole scale, it's quite a bit different. The other thing that you need to do when you talk to federal government is impress on them the situation, and so that language is needed at that point.
Yeah. Why do you think it is different? Do you think it's a more permanent change? Like, I guess COVID, we all kind of assumed it was going to go away and we'd all go back to normal.
And everybody was boozing online alcohol, home delivery, people were reveling in that. We had the excise increase in the middle of that, the rebate increase, I should say. So that was a boon for many. But I guess the issue's what's happening now. And I do say, the old Sara Lee cake, if you're as old as I am, model of layer upon layer upon layer, because we already knew we had little to in some instances, no access to taps in venues and now fridges. We've got supermarket brands that are, quickly new brands, every couple of weeks. We've got all of the, inputs of cost of goods have gone through the roof. Freight's killing us and many other industries. Packaging's gone up. Consumer trends have changed in what they're drinking. I just saw some new stats on RTDs today. I'm like, well, 1 in every 5, and so it's, if it was 1 or 2 of those elements that were impacting, excuse me, as well as then inflation and people just, can't afford to pay their bills, let alone buy what we know is beer at a price point that's in bad times not particularly affordable.
It's a very different future than one that was predicted. I recall an IBA annual general meeting before your time, Kylie. I think it was probably maybe 2015, 2016, and that sort of thing. When Jamie Cook was sort of at the helm, and he, I recall seeing a PowerPoint presentation about how. Independent / craft beer was at about 7 or 8 or 9% of the market share of the total beer market. And there was this prediction that it was going to go to 20 to 25% within the next 5 years and that sort of thing. Those things that you just mentioned, are they the reason why it didn't pan out that way? Or what I mean, even that's even pre-pandemic, I suppose we're talking,
I think that the strategic plan that I inherited when I started said, 15% within the next 10 years of market share. And if you look at the, any industry, a growth trajectory that was going the way it was, that may have been a reasonable assumption. And certainly, if not an assumption, something to aim for. And you guys have been in this longer than me, so you know what that graph looked like at that point in time. And then you had another evolution when the IBA went this way, and the new constitution was developed, and it defined independence. And so there was a whole lot of activity that happened. My first day was the first day of lockdown in Victoria.
Mm-hmm.
And so I rarely say it out loud or publicly, but I say to the board and the team, what would this 4 years have been like for me had we not had a global pandemic? What would it have been like for the IBA? Because honestly, I've been in a bunker for 4 years fighting multiple wars. And so nobody could predict that, firstly, or the impact that would have. And yes, we had JobKeeper and we had all these other things that were in place. But the second that tap was switched off, and people had to fend for themselves, and businesses had to fend for themselves, those that had fallen back on capital reserves and had none, those that invested heavily because every second person was looking for a canning line, and then that growth didn't pan out. Then we hit 2023, and again, we're not the only industry. We just saw, I think, boat repairs, one of the oldest, gone, 700 jobs lost. So this is an impact that's, I think, been cumulative over 12 months. And the problem, I think, Dan, to try and answer or come back to your question, is there's not a lot of light at the end of the tunnel, particularly when you look at what consumers are choosing to drink. So if it was all the other bits, that might be fine, and we might be able to do more work in trying to educate the consumer as to why they should buy local, buy Australian. But if they're not buying beer, I think that's one of the challenges.
Well, I think it was always a thing, wasn't it? When we came into the industry, it was sort of like we knew beer was declining, but craft beer was just assumed it would follow the American sort of trend. And we'd sort of all been over to America, and we'd seen what was happening there, and we were excited about kind of that coming here. And I guess for all of these reasons you've mentioned, that hasn't happened. But one thing, when I read through the submission to the government, and when I listened to a lot of the commentary around these voluntary administrations and the issues that these companies have had, it's always pitched as a COVID related thing, and it's kind of pitched as all of these companies had a lot of debt coming out of COVID, and now they're going into VA only because they can't service that debt. And I don't know if that's 100% true. I mean, I know it's not 100% true. Let me put it that way. I know it's not true for every company. I know in 2021, a lot of breweries were doing very well past COVID. And a lot of breweries didn't have much excise debt at all, because breweries don't like getting into excise debt because the ATO are a pain in the ass. You don't want to have a debt to the ATO. So I wonder, I mean, you'd have to see all the P&Ls and the financials to know the true answer, but I just wonder how many of these companies are in this position actually not related to COVID, but just based on the fact that 2021 was such a good year that they invested so heavily in expansion, and then late 2022, 2023 hit, and they realized, oh man, this is actually not going to keep growing. Now I'm actually screwed.
I think that firstly that every case is different. I think that every VA, from Ballistic to Tribe to Bad Shepherd to Wayward, I think they're all different. They've all got different management, different company structures, different shareholders, and so their obligations will be different. I think possibly right. Some or maybe many of those invested, and possibly invested on a wave. However, I also think that some of them have had little to no other debt other than a tax debt. And I know as well that the challenge of negotiate, even if you've met every single payment since the day you had to start paying back, not missed it by a minute, there's not a lot of flexibility in, if you want 100 cents in the dollar now, be really great if you could give me another 2 years. And in some instances, that's happening. They're getting 2 and 3 years. In others, it's, 7 days. And so some of those triggers are different for all. I can't, and we can't work out any rhyme or reason as to why Brewery A will get an extension and Brewery B won't.
So you're saying that the ATO is applying payment terms differently to different breweries without any sort of policy in place?
Or rhyme or reason that we can determine, Hendo. They may have a strategy. We know that the country's got the largest tax debt, I think, in history, and they're trying to work that down because it's in the billions. The other challenge too is we know that many, because we have 450 odd brewery members, and all of them contact us at some point, regardless of size and scale. And so we also know that October, November last year, there was a lot of talk around, we're hoping for a bumper summer. We're hoping for, that bumper summer is going to get us into X, Y, and Z. It's going to push us into blah, blah. That possibly hasn't happened, or it hasn't happened to the degree in which they needed it to. And then the next excise hit came on the 5th of Feb. And so we know that many who didn't have that bumper summer and who said when that next excise, it's going to push us over the edge. I think the challenge as well, when you don't have a lot of debt other than that tax debt, is you're trying to look at reduced market access for your business. People are taking taps away, they're taking other avenues of wholesale and retail away. And so maybe if you were trying to keep up with your old obligations, then sometimes it's been very challenging to meet the current obligations as well as back pay. And so that's triggered the next.
Excise is a really interesting one because, I don't envy your situation in terms of having to lobby the federal government with regards to reforms to the excise system, because it's 120-year-old. And it's federal government after federal government has just fiddled around with it around the edges and that sort of thing, because no one really wants to make any fundamental reforms to it. Because I suppose it's because it's a sin tax, I suppose, and no one wants to be seen to be cutting tax on alcohol, I would imagine. Do you think that the reforms that have been made recently, do you think that they've helped or hindered breweries?
I think there's real mixed views on, firstly, whether or not the rebate should have increased from 100,000 to 350 at all. Obviously, many benefit from it, and at that time when it was when the announcement was made that it would change, it was good for most at that point in time. But there were definitely polarizing views. And that was sort of, as I started that excise piece about the rebate was, well into its circulation within government, and a lot of work had already been done. And so, and you're right, the tinkering, I've been involved in committees, and Scott Morrison, when he was the Prime Minister, developed an excise reform committee. We all were jumping for joy, participated in all the consultation. It was robust. There was a whole heap of recommendations. Some of them have been implemented, for example, aligning payments with BAS, so it's not weekly, it's quarterly, and a few other things that would streamline. In fact, I think the word streamline was actually in the inquiry. I went back and looked at it the other day. 90% of it is not done, and now they've said, no, we're not doing anything about that. So definitely tinkering around the edges. We know that the process is cumbersome, let alone the mechanics of it. We've spent a lot of time looking at regimes in other countries. We've looked at the ways in which other governments have tried to help their beer industry. We've seen some that incentivize it because it's not a health issue and they feel it's part of their culture. There's really great models to look at. But what I was told from day one was it's not palatable for either government because it's very hard. You've got, as you guys know, again, better than me, you've got spirits sitting over here. There's a different brandy tax. We've got a wine tax. Essentially, we'd all be saying, let's have a fair and equitable playing field for alcohol tax. I'm not saying we shouldn't pay tax, ever. We just want, some equity across the board as to how it's done that doesn't stifle innovation, small business, local and region and rural jobs, all the other things that we know certainly our part of the world supports and provides.
Yeah, it's interesting when I haven't done the numbers per se, but I'm pretty sure it's something that wouldn't be too difficult to do. Is that if you were to look at just alcohol And if you were to have some sort of, in an ideal world, an excise system where it was based on, say, a standard drink, right?
Volume.
Because I think at the moment we and if you want to, and if they want to call it a sin tax, if they want to talk about the health benefits, let's talk about it in terms of standard drinks. I think that's a fair way to put it, because that everyone understands that. And if there was a standard drink tax, like currently, I would say that wine is definitely at an advantage.
Oh,
Don't mess with my wine price, Hendo.
And spirits are and spirits would be at a disadvantage.
Lethbridge is going to be $50 a bottle if we change it.
Dan still wants his $11 cask.
Definitely.
5 litre cask, yes. I seen him at Pinot Palooza last year. He was a machine.
That's-
Do you know what though? We joke, but it's quite right. The even what we pay in tax per standard drink, if you compare beer to wine, it's extraordinary. And we, you'll never catch us saying wine shouldn't have support. What I've said from day one, and which is kind of the concept that we've been talking about for 12 months or so around the notion of Beer Australia, is that we want what they've got. We want, Wine Australia is a powerful beast. You log onto the website, it's got the federal government logo, they've got a levy associated with the tax. That gets matched. It's well supported through government, state and territory, as well as federal. So we're envious, in fact, of the benefits. We're not saying don't make it easy for the wine industry. We're saying we just like a little bit of support or recognition or help in difficult times.
How does that? I noticed that in your submission.
Sorry,
what is Wine Australia? How does that work? Is that, like, as you said in there, you wanted something called Beer Australia? Is it a government body, or is it a different version of the IBA? Or
Wine Australia again? The wine boom in the 90s, where it was their graph was doing this, and then sort of leveled out. It's a very long history, and I won't profess to know all of it, but the wine industry got together, approached government, and agreed via the Department of Agriculture. So if you look at what government department owns an industry, ours is owned by industry because we're classified as manufacturers. Whereas my argument as well is, here's the support and here's the importance for our sector that agriculture provides in this country. The fact that the winery grows, makes what they grow, means they're owned by the Department of Agriculture, and it's legislated that the wet tax has levies, so part of the tax goes into funding Wine Australia, and then the federal government provide extra resources for them to be able to deliver for objectives set out for the national economy. So
they've got money.
Been around for a long time. They've got millions.
Mm.
Oh yeah.
And so the difference being is that brewers and distillers are manufacturers, whereas winemakers are farmers, and therefore they get support from the Department of Agriculture and that sort of thing, and probably also the National Party, who would be very much, have a lot of influence in rural Australia and that sort of thing. Would that be fair?
And true. And it's the reason. Two things. One is we've created a Parliamentary Friends of Brewing group, which and there's a bunch of them. MPs sign on, both parties, both sides, partisan groups. To be
Is Barnaby Joyce a member of that group? Sorry, too soon. Come on.
Possibly too soon. Actually, I don't think so. No. But they agreed to understand, be educated, participate, hopefully, be ambassadors over time. So that's happening and going super well. The other thing that we're trying to do at the minute is writing a grant to do some supply chain mapping to look at being able to build the case for a circular economy for the beer industry. How we benefit the agricultural sector, and if this many breweries keep closing their doors or being in trouble, the impact that's going to have and the opportunities that it has for Australian farmers. We're already starting to see breweries work directly with the farmer for either hops or barley, and the farmers going, "You beauty, I get a better price per tonne." And so there's this evolution happening. And so what we're trying to say to the government is, we're not just manufacturers. We're not just got kit, canning lines, and an industry. We are those that want to and try their best, support Australian ingredients, and we are a greater part of the economy than what beer is perceived. So a lot of what I do when I talk to government is trying to change perceptions of the beer industry and have them, as well as consumers, take us seriously. It's not a bunch of dudes with beards and man buns and black t-shirts.
Definitely not a man buns over here.
You could probably take that a little bit further, like not just the integration between brewers becoming more closely aligned with the, like, let's say barley growers or hop growers and that sort of thing, but there's also the potential there with regards to things like carbon reduction. If you look at some of the stuff that say Rocky Ridge have done in WA and becoming more aligned with their barley growers to tighten that supply chain for carbon reduction and cost savings. Like Rocky Ridge is one of the most efficient financially breweries in the country because they focus on their carbon footprint and that sort of thing.
Oh, and
that's huge.
When you take a look at, Hamish and Mel are just, my hearts go every time I hear something they've done. I'm like, you guys are just.
Have you been there?
Yeah.
It's amazing. That brewery is just mind blowing. And
they just, slow and steady wins the race. They just
absolutely
leading the charge in so many ways. Love them, love their beer. But heaps of. We have a sustainability project group, and we've got members from all over the country, and they're all doing amazing things at whatever level they can do it. You've got the Capitals who got Pangolin and did the big thing. You've got Brick Lane who's done it a different way, and it's why sustainability is one of the pillars in our 10-year roadmap, because our industry cares. We've got so many examples of the circular economy, and again, that's important because sustainability is very much underpins a circular economy. But we've got examples of spent grain being given to farmers. It's happening. It's a slipstream, I think, and they were saying that they were just about to give some grain to a farmer that had. So we care about this already, and I think probably our industry has been doing more in this space, just doing it as a matter of course. Now we get to celebrate it, and now it gives us entrees into acknowledgement and funding and other bits and pieces where I think it was even more important, because we know we are high energy users, and again, on the whole, try very much to mitigate or reduce that impact.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, we've sort of moved on from excise, but I guess, like, as we sort of get to the end of our questions, we've talked about what the beer industry is like at the moment, but and we've talked about sort of some reforms to excise. However, I don't know if those, and I guess you could answer this question, are those excise reforms likely to sort of improve things around the edges, or are they likely to turn this current situation around? Like, is there a scenario where we talk a year from now and the beer industry is all of a sudden going really well because of something like excise reform, or would it be something else, or is it actually just not going to be as good as we thought it was going to be?
I think, Dan, there's the way that I have approached what we do is, I guess, some short-term gains and some short-term relief, whatever that be for, while the longer burn issues are churning on the side, like Beer Australia. So, to me, my remit and that of the board is, if we're custodians of this for this point in time, our role is to understand where we've come from and where we're going in the future. And it's why we've just changed our constitution, which is out for consultation to members brewery members at the minute, to look at who we are for the next 10 years. So I guess, and what we as an organisation can do to be more sustainable. So we're here to support and what the definition of independence means. And so that's a long game. The creation of Beer Australia and a national recognition for our industry is a long game. The requests that are in that submission are partly short and partly long. And I would say that the the things we've suggested for excise, and when it comes to a budget submission or giving a government body along with a wish list of things, you put 20 times more than what you imagine you're actually going to get.
Yeah.
So we obviously the first 3 would provide temporary relief for the next 12 months until we see what the playing field is. Then we see when that point in time changes, because none of us can predict at the minute what is going to happen in the end of 2024 or in 12 or 18 months. So the extension on ATO payback, absolutely a game changer, and will help many. Won't stop VAs, because as you've just said before, they've got other debts. The indexing the rebate, I'm not confident that we would get that. We've got to also remember constantly in everything we suggest that there's an industry out there that's well resourced and quite powerful when it comes to anti-alcohol and the health industry. And so the people that we're asking for support will have other people at them saying, don't do that.
Yeah. And
so we've tried to, again, say, we're not trying to ask you to wipe a debt. We're just saying, can you just allow us some flexibility? And if you don't mind, can you just stop those twice yearly hikes just for a couple of years, just to let us breathe? And it will change the game for some, but it won't stop others going into VA or out of business, because they might just be at that point in time. The other things in that federal submission are for the IBA to do some work. That research that I talked about, we want to look at some work around being able to have a body of research that says drinking in moderation is actually not bad for you. So when we are battling some of our opposition, we've got a better case to make. It'll give us some funding to be able to provide more resources, like the HR service that we're just about to launch, like shared buying, procurement, energy deals, which is coming along for our members as well. So there's some stuff in there for us. There's some stuff in there for the industry. We've known forever that, Hendo knows fine and very well that we've had a skills shortage, and the training the people coming through training haven't caught up. So popping, that on the skilled migration list would help, because I write letters of support constantly to bring in somebody from Germany or somewhere, and it's an onerous, time-consuming and costly process. And the energy deal, the last request is because this federal government want everybody in industry to convert to electricity by, a certain point in time, and there is absolutely no way that's going to happen without some support. So again, a very long-winded way to say some short, medium and long-term requests, but the crystal ball I don't have, because it won't tell me what's going to happen. We just know that from member surveys, every mashup that I did in every state last year, everything this is what will help.
Yeah. Hendo, you got a couple of questions that I think we sort of touched on a little bit, but do you want to get to your final ones?
Yeah. So one of the things that I find really surprising in, here we are now in 2024. 2023 was rough as far as VAs go and that sort of thing, and as we've already established that 2024 is not going to get much better. If anything, it's going to get worse and that sort of thing. The thing that surprises me the most is that there's still people out there who want to start breweries in 2024, right? Which is kind of a little bit scary and that sort of thing. And I deal with this a lot in my day-to-day. I deal with a lot of startups and stuff like that. And I'm very much a realist, in how I deal with it, speak to startups and that sort of thing. Dan can attest to that back in the day, because I basically, before he started, Black Ops, that sort of thing, I was like, this is the reality of what it's going to be like. And this was like 2014 on that sort of thing. What's the IBA doing, to provide either resources or guidance and that sort of thing for those who are looking to start a brewery in 2024, given the current economic climate?
Yeah. One thing that I think is important to talk about, because, I think you mentioned it on last week's pod as well, it is all doom and gloom. And if you receive my comms, so I try and temper it with good news, and I try and temper it with, yeah, we just got to keep fighting, and there are success stories. There are people that are businesses out there that are okay because the model that they had was the right model to start with that will allow their survival right now. And that most of those are the what I call hyper local model, where you're taking beer out of a keg that's right there and pouring it out of a tap right here.
Yes.
You're not relying on distribution. You're not relying
Yes.
on retail. You're not relying on wholesale. You don't have to worry about kegs and all the other, bits and bobs that come with the next level out. So that, they're in their industrial estate, or they've taken over the milk bar, or whatever. They're well supported in the brew pub, and usually complemented by hospitality.
And they get the best benefit of the excise rebate too.
And again,
at the right size, yeah.
So even though we know hospitality is not fair and the best across the country, or as well as it could be, those models are working. So to answer your question, I would say, if that's the model that somebody's going to, if you've found a gorgeous old building in a small country town, and you're going to pour beers, you're going to serve your own. Again, you've got a brew pub, so the tanks are here. And you can test the water, you can support your local, these guys that I was talking about, they support every distillery in my region. They support so many wineries, and so they have a variety of offerings, and the food is awesome. And so I think that's attracting other foodies and people that aren't necessarily there for beer, so they're benefit. So if those, and we've got, I think, because we have a category of our membership that's called Brewery and Planning, it's cheaper, and it just gives them access to the communications and the 220 plus member resources that we offer behind the firewall. And so, I think at the minute we've got about 24 breweries and planning that are members. I know Brews News used to have the Brewery Radar, and they would report on that. And I think maybe, again, it depends on the model. We refer to experts. I would never be caught dead, nor would any of the team be caught dead telling somebody how to run a business, because that's not what we do.
No.
And where there's a bunch of experts out there, so we give the lay of the land, we give the state of the industry, they hear everything else that everybody else does, and if they want to make that decision anyway. But what we do is make the connections, and broadly, in terms of, I've got a epoxy my floor. How do I do that? So did I say that right? Epoxy?
Yeah, you
the right word. Yeah,
yeah.
I just had one of those. That's not the right word.
You're practically a brewer now.
I've stood in a lot of breweries now. So yeah, it's not something that I would say don't do this, but
yes.
The word of caution is, look at what you're jumping into, read the media, trawl, talk to, and the great and amazing thing about this industry, I found it immediately was, oh my God, this is the best heartening thing ever, is everybody will tell people stuff. Everybody, I put people onto board members, I put people onto project group members. We've got an Indies Awards Advisory Committee. I put people onto them. Vast majority is happy to share. And so I guess that's the benefit of what we do, is say, talk to as many people as you can. In the end, the husband and wife, the two blokes that have brewed in a shed, and this is their dream, and they planned it forever, we're probably not going to be able to stop that.
No, and I don't think you should stop it in that sort of thing. And I think, I think you're right, is that having the right conversations with the right people, particularly around business model, and I think lowering or tempering those who have aspirations to start a brewery, to temper those aspirations, like there's always that dream of like, oh, I'm going to build a brewery and I'm going to put my beer in Dan Murphy's, right? And I still hear it. It's just like, and
Good
I'm
luck with that.
Yeah, exactly. It's
especially
like,
right
do you really want to sell beer for? I said you can't make your beer for the price that it needs to appear on the shelf in a Dan Murphy's. Let alone do you want 90 to 120 day payment terms? It's just But the thing is that, hey, if you think about a brew pub and you, instead of selling a keg of beer for $250, $300, you're selling it for $1,200. And not only that, it's like, there's your beer, give me your cash, and it's in your bank account the next day.
Look how fresh the beer is.
And the beer's really fresh and everyone's having a really good experience. But then there's the challenge of, okay, so you're now not just a brewery, but you're also a hospitality business, and there's additional challenges around that.
Yeah.
And you're also not attracting the same people, because if the opportunity in the market is a small brew pub, there's a lot of people who start businesses who don't have any interest in starting a small brew pub. They want to start something that could be big and they could sell and ultimately, IPO or sell to the majors or something like that. And if that pathway is no longer there, people are not going to enter the industry. It's going to be whole.
I was asked this the other day. I've done so many media interviews lately; they're all blurring in. But I was asked this the other day. Do you think that there's still a desire out there, or a dream that the large multinationals are going to come and buy breweries? I said, my personal opinion is no. I don't have any facts to back up with, but we haven't seen a sale since Stone and Wood.
Yes.
And
no.
And then they devolve themselves of the other brands that they bought other than Stone and Wood. So
right, but it still gets talked about a lot. Like if you look at that filter crowdfunding, which we talked about when that came out, the whole story about it around was, we're doing the crowdfunding because the majors are knocking down our door and we don't want to sell out.
If anything, the majors are scaling back operations with, Tiny Mountain in Townsville being scaled back and all that sort of thing, So
it would make no sense for them to buy anyone. They already own the best brands.
And I think they probably invest their money in the latest hard Fanta or hard whatever's going to come out next.
Hard rated, it's
hard
called.
Rated is what we call it around here, and it's a bit of a fan favorite from our 12 listeners. That's probably my fault.
I can't not see it. When you buy a new car and all of a sudden you see that car everywhere. I cannot not see. Again, I live in a small country town, and so the bottle logo at the front's got an A-frame. I'm like, oh, you're kidding. And kids walking down the street with a 10-pack under their arm. I'm like, this is so wrong.
How old are these kids?
It's crazy, Kylie, because I've actually done, of all of the sensory and beer judging and that sort of thing that I've done over the years, I have done a side-by-side hard rated versus vodka and regular solo and cannot tell the difference. It's cheaper. Just go get a bottle of bloody
and solo
or something and solo and you're set. It's crazy.
It's a good looking can though. I don't know. I'm a bit of a sucker for it.
Indeed.
Again, it's on my
they're making bank on it though,
isn't it? Tap.
Isn't it? Exactly. It's amazing. Like they're making absolute bank on this, Asahi are. It's just
absolutely. Why would they bother buying another brewery when
it's interesting to talk about like consumer tastes and consumer trends and that sort of thing. If we bring that back to beer, how does the independent brewing industry raise awareness about independent beer?
With $1 million a year, and that's quite serious. But awareness raising, marketing is where I came from. Awareness raising is a long game and an expensive game. But we started in 2021 with a grant, and we spent 70 grand with KPMG and did a bunch of consumer focus groups across the country. We did a survey, a proper survey of 500 drinkers, and we did, like this, interviewed, was COVID time, so we were all behind a screen, prompted, unprompted, show them logos, what is craft, and we tried to break down what the perception of craft versus independent and whether or not any of the visual recognition, visual signs prompted a response to that's craft or who owns it fundamentally. Fascinating. Absolutely gold piece of research and a wonderful process to have gone through, because from our understanding and mine, other than Beer Cartel, this work hadn't been done of actually getting consumers, and it was light, medium and heavy drinkers, but excluded the beer bubble. So we're like, no, we don't want to talk to you because you guys are already sold. Um, and a lot of it was, well, we think this is Australian. I buy this because I think it's Australian. Who owns that? Asahi owns that. And so that was all saying all the things we wanted to say, right? And so we used that piece of research that went into the 10-year roadmap, because KPMG did that as well, and then started to build a consumer marketing campaign. Went out to a whole bunch of agencies. You know, we're so income light that again, trying to get grants, trying to cobble together the money. So we went out, we found an independent advertising agency that would look at coming on this really long journey with us, that tried to tell consumers what independent meant and why they should change their purchasing behavior to support looking for the seal. And there's been debate again every few months in my time as to why the seal's not available to all independents, and I kind of won't get into that argument. But we spent, last year was the first year of our national consumer campaign, and it went really well. It had great recognition, it had great click-through, millions of click-throughs to the Ask for Indie website, which is our consumer-facing channels. The videos that we had, we worked with a national, quite well-known illustrative artist to do all that. Like, it was super cool. If the industry wasn't in such strife, and therefore our membership income dropping, we would have rolled out phase 2 of that this year. And we hopefully will, because I'm just going to look at some other grants and see if we can do that. But we and our members carrying that seal on their packaging, having it on their socials, having it on their website, having visual representations in the brew pub or the tap room. We've produced posters, we've produced here's how to use it on your umbrellas, we've coasters, the whole kit and caboodle, and made it available to our members. So other than the indie breweries who are eligible to use that seal and to talk about what independence is, the job's ours. But it's an expensive job, and it's a long game.
Can I put in a request? When Richard, I think, took over as the chair, I begged him to do a IBA podcast, which you're obviously definitely not going to do. But if you do get $1 million from the government, can you have like a little line item in there where you either do a podcast or, you know, have someone do one? Because I think with Brews News closing,
it's on the radar.
Okay, all right. There you go. I'll stop talking. Good. I think that's a big hole with Brews News. Like, we've seen all the news this week. We didn't need Brews News to hear about this news, but the podcast was very popular, and particularly the ones they did where they interviewed the brewers, I think, is something the industry doesn't have if they don't keep doing those.
Yeah, and big hole left. We all, I think there's a grief process that, and I laughed when I said that, but it's the truth. I think there's a lot of, because it's just part of this serious change, and it felt like it all happened at once. You know, there was some major announcements, beer and brewer stopped, you know, and we announced BrewCon, you know, all the stuff that seemed to be like, whoa, our world is changing. And so it is really sad. I'm really happy for Matt's new life adventure, but it does leave a hole. The challenge for us in doing that, you know, we would never try and mimic, but to fill a hole, is that Matt was independent and he was able to talk about the tough stuff to a degree that we might not. But that's not necessarily, you know, you probably know that Sabrina Kunz now works for us, you know, the crazy, energetic little whirlwind that she is has got us thinking about 10 different ways of doing business, which is absolutely heartening. And the team are going hell for leather at trying to do what's best for the industry. And if that's what's needed, then we'll have a look at whether or not that's feasible for us.
Coming back to the marketing effort that was done last year, and in particular, and I know we've had this conversation before around the independent seal. Do you think the independent seal itself has an identity crisis because it doesn't mention beer or brewery?
This is one of Hendo's things.
We talked
my
about
thing.
this.
I know. I
This
just
in
want to put
February
want to
last
put it
year.
out there so everyone else can hear our conversation. That's all.
But Hendo and I talked about this. I want to say it was this time last year. I was in Queensland.
Yes.
We had the mashup, and you said that to me, and I don't know if I was just too hot, because I was baking, or I was like, when you're like, is that really? And you're like, that can't be right. It will happen. The word beer will be in there without a doubt. We just need
that's
to.
it.
I just remember, and I know we've had this conversation. I remember when being at the stomping ground when the independent seal was first revealed, right? And there was a big, and again, this is
Big
before
launch.
your time, Kylie. There was the big launch event and that sort of thing, and then all of a sudden it was like this, this music, and then and then the independent seal came up, and it just said certified independent and a picture of a beer, and everyone just goes, oh, like that, and there was no like, yeah, let's get into it, that sort of thing, and yeah. So are you saying basically that word beer is on the
The word
cards?
beer needs to be in there.
Yeah,
I think
beer
we're
or
getting
brewery or something.
We're getting a yes to basically every question. So why don't
I think we're doing all right here.
Why don't we ask if Coopers can be added to the IBA?
Getting spicy.
This is a lot of chat about that at the minute, and I don't know if this has got to you, but it's topical. Because we've got all these series of town halls around the country at the minute to talk about our constitution and the changes, potential changes, or the draft, and to listen, hear, and consult about, again, as I said earlier, that next 10 years and what the IBA should look like and what independence should look like. And in that, quite simplistically, when I first started, to be very frank, because I was a little naive, I said, why in our constitution, which was a very complex beast, so we've just simplified it as well, but and put a few things that means we can have a for-profit arm and a few other bits and pieces, again, that helps us potentially thrive in time. I said, why do we cap membership of the IBA? Why do we cap the amount of litres? So it says you have to produce under 40 million litres a year.
Exactly, yes.
And I was a bit confused because I wasn't involved in the politics, because I wasn't here at the time that the IBA constitution was developed. I was able to naively ask that question. And again, 2017, like 40 million would have been, what? None of our indies are going to get there. And so the question that followed that, probably another very naive question was, well, why would we, if a member got to 40 million, why would that mean that they couldn't be defined as independent anymore? And so,
you asked a great question.
We've got some breweries that are at 26 million. So hopefully for them that they may get there. Again, if we're looking in the next 10 years.
You want them to get to 40 million or 50 million or 100 million.
Yeah, exactly.
So what we put out, and again, our brewery members are the only one that gets to vote, so it's mainly focused on them, but was a constitution that didn't have a cap. And as long as you meet the revised definition of independence, then you could be a member. Doesn't actually have anything to do with how much beer you produce, though the membership structure in terms of how you buy a membership would still be based on how much beer you produce.
Yeah,
of course, inadvertently, who does that let in?
Coopers, but they would have to pay a lot of money to join.
We need them. Well, exactly, but the IBA would need them though.
Yeah, exactly.
The funding and that sort of thing. It's good for the IBA.
It's not the reason the cap was removed, but it does allow that. And so what's happening at the minute is the consultation. We're getting surveys in, we're having these town halls, we're hearing feedback, and we'll then digest that feedback and make recommendations to the board as to whether or not those changes should stay or go. So at this point in time, for your listeners and those that are our members, we really need them to pay attention to that, because it changes who we are. It does change the definition, and will impact some. And it changes the board structure. So we'll have hopefully more board roles available. We'll be able to appoint to the board from our associates members as well. And there'll be vacant board positions when we have our AGM in November. So it's important that if anybody is thinking about being involved in the IBA that they have their say and they do nominate to be on the board, because we need a good we want a good geographic spread. We want a good size and scale of brewery spread on the board, and strategic minds, and we'll have some skills based, requirements. So I would encourage anybody that's looking from the sidelines or even lobbing bombs from the sidelines to be a part of it.
Love it.
Awesome.
Well, I think we've definitely taken up enough of your time. I really appreciate it.
You didn't let me talk about what we're doing in Queensland.
Go on then.
Oh, please.
Guys, it's your big thing last
Because
week.
we did speak about it last week. I mean, that's right, because we were talking about last week, we spoke about state-based organizations and all that sort of thing. And please.
I can tell you in another podcast why I think that those are not sustainable models, Hendo, state-based, because I've come from an industry from tourism, and it happens all, and it's hard. But anyway, and that's not protecting my patch, because we've supported the creation of new clusters and new groups and lots of people, lots of different structures all over the country. We work super well with WABA, and many others. But what we are doing in Queensland, the problem will, I think, from what I was listening to last week, and as I said to you via email, I was all fired up and my redhead bone was going off as I was listening to it. I'm like, that's not true. They don't know that, and so I think, again, the human that I am reflects on that and says, okay, well, why doesn't Dan Norris know that? And why doesn't Hendo know that? And if you're not reading our comms, if you're not reading our socials, if you're not engaged, then you probably might not know that. But there is a lot of work going on in every state and territory, not necessarily every territory, but definitely every state. And so what's happening in, we're just working on a craft strategy in WA. We're just about to launch that. We've got a different construct in Tassie. We've developed a different model in Victoria. South Australia is the missing link at the minute. But what's happening in Queensland is we've spent now 6 months, possibly even longer, because it went before BrewCon, around BrewCon, let's say, working with the Queensland government to develop the next iteration of what was the Queensland craft brewing strategy. The next iteration will be an artisan plan, so it includes distillers.
Oh.
And so we're working side by side with the Department of Manufacturing, who owns our industry, and the QDA, so the Queensland Distillers Association. We're all sitting around the table, and we've been working on this for quite some time. There was a survey that had come out again in the last 6 months, which was to inform what went into that new plan. The last point of call for that was me sending an email to the guys this week saying, we've seen one version, when are we seeing the next version? Because the Distillers Conference is in Brisbane on the 29th and 30th of April, and we'd love to launch it there. We're not precious about that. We work together very well with the ADA and the local chapters, and many of our members are shared. Heaps of breweries are members of the ADA as well. It's a great partnership, I think, if they can make it work. What the problem for me, Hendo, is that industry needs to see it. Firstly, we need to make sure that what we've worked really hard to put in there, that was a missing link, not delivered in the last plan, or what's needed now is in there. So is the QDA. And so I'm saying to Bill and the team, we need to see it again. They need to see it again. Our board needs to see it again. And then guess what? The Queensland brewing industry needs to see it before we stand up there and go, look at this shiny new thing that we might not be particularly happy with, because we've seen what's going to print. I'm confident with the work that we've done and the QDA have done that it'll be a really robust and good plan. And we've really pushed for a whole of government approach to its implementation. That was, I think, promised, but I don't believe has happened. And so we also sit on the regulatory, the artisan license committee, and we sit on the other committee, and we sit on all of these committees. So over here, we were reviewing the takeaway license, and over here, we're reviewing the artisan liquor license. And so now it's all in the plan. The planning stuff that you mentioned, the local government framework for breweries is I used to work for local government, so I know how hard that is, and I know why they probably haven't achieved it, because it's a really tough ask. But it's back in there, and it's just a little more robust, and there's some easily implementable, tick one thing off, do it. Easy peasy. Give them some guidelines, super easy. Change the planning scheme, which is what they propose to do, is a really big thing. So I'm confident that if the work that we've done is acknowledged and goes into that plan, it includes a whole bunch of stuff around education, as you know, some opportunities for better or more outreach, regional education services. It included the diploma that you mentioned that was challenging us to, you know, it required a significant industry contribution that we couldn't make or find. And so we're waiting with bated breath, to be very frank. The
How
problem
is this?
We didn't know about that, though, is ours, because we need to communicate more widely
about now that you mentioned
issues.
Exactly, because now that you mentioned that, I feel like in my unique position, I feel like I might have slipped through the cracks there with regards to the comms and that sort of thing, because I'm not a brewery member of the IBA. I'm an associate member of the IBA.
You still get everything.
Do I still get those comms?
And
okay, cool.
Everything that we do now for possibly 8 months, I think there's maybe 7 or 8 editions there, is in the magazine, Everything Indie, which can be accessed by the front page of our website. You don't even have to be a member.
Okay. And so if is there a committee or something within the IBA that handles state-based issues? Or...
Well, it was me until now.
Okay, so should there be a committee, or?
However, in Tasmania, we've got, so under the board, again, all volunteers, huge commitment, and they're such a support for us. Under the board, we've got a team of 5, some part-time in there. And then we have the Indies Advisory Committee, who's a formal committee of the board. And then we've got a bunch of project groups. We've got, as you again identified, volunteer stewards and judges for things like the Indies. But then we've also got, excuse me, we've also got what we call state chapter leads. And in Tasmania, for example, John Burridge is our state chapter lead, does a huge amount of work. We write the grant, we go to the meetings together. Same with Perth, same in South Australia. Steve Brockman's our state chapter lead in South Australia.
Who is it in Queensland? Is it Lauren still? Or?
All of them amazing. It was Dave from Sea Legs. When Lauren came on the board, she sort of took that role because she was sort of on a few committees, so it didn't make sense that it was 2 people. Lauren has just stepped off the board now. So one of the roles that will be vacant at the AGM in a couple of months is one that she had filled. So those state chapter leads, and we need a new state chapter lead in Victoria as well. So in the next couple of months, we've got a few project groups that we need to recruit some new members, just because people have either left the industry or not around anymore. Not a huge amount, and we'll recruit for those new state chapter leads after we see what our board construct looks like. But
I'll put a name forward for the Queensland state chapter role. Adam Shell.
Which one?
You've got
to know which one.
Thanks for that recommendation.
Yes.
It's got to come from our membership, and
it does. It would. This person is from your membership.
He'd be great. He would be great.
He would be very good.
Yeah.
So we'll see what the board construct looks like. We'll do that first, because we've got so much on at the minute. We can only sort of focus on one thing, and managing the project groups, who are all amazing, and doing heaps, is also a bit of work in its own right. But those local reps, my answer to your question, I guess, is those local representatives are the ones that we work with that translate local issues up. What we also do is survey members twice a year. We ask specific questions related to state, but the vast majority of the advocacy or the lobbying for these things comes from our partnership with WABA, or with the Southwest Brewers Alliance in Margaret River, or with Sunshine Coast, or with whoever that is. And if there's not a body or a group or a cluster, then we just do it ourselves. Because when I started, we had 2 plans in place, New South Wales and Queensland.
Yeah.
And my aim was to have one in every state.
Yeah. It's really interesting.
So there's
Excellent.
heaps going on. And, you know, the challenge for local associations is once somebody has to manage a bank account and do the minutes, and somebody then comes in and says, I've got this great idea, let's do a website, then they move on. Volunteerism in this country is really challenged, not just in our industry, but people are exhausted. And so these things are set up with great intentions and great ideas. But what we are doing in response to that, Hendo, and have planned for some time is we've got our mashup schedule that'll come out soon. We've committed to 2 mashups in every state. Sabrina's in Brisbane now, so there'll be more action, more activity happening in Queensland for members' engagement. And we've got Emily, our membership manager. She is on Central Coast in New South Wales. So now we're not Victorian focused as well with the team. We can do a bit more. And, you know, we'll have the WABA conference in Perth. So we go there. I go to South Australia for beer and barbecue. We have mashups around that. I'm in Tassie next month. I'll be in Tassie again in April. So we do a lot of travel, and wherever that happens, we'll do a mashup similar to what we did last year. But also respect the fact that there's not been enough because of the amount of time, you know, we haven't had a lot of people on the ground. And the hard thing for me is, I guess, to delineate where I spend my time on the national issues versus the state issues.
Of course,
but
yeah.
Always, any review
understand that
we
challenge.
respond to. Anything that comes out of liquor licensing, we respond to on behalf of the industry. We've got one at the minute that's about online. Sabrina's writing it because it's due tomorrow. Age verification, which is going to impact everybody, but it's coming out. So we do the research, write a response, share it with members, which hopefully you are seeing our stuff on CDS. We've got we've got national harmonisation, one scheme, one register coming. So any opportunity we can, we respond and share with our members and ask them to respond as well. So there's that, you know, breakdown between what we will do. You know, I even present to town planning committees on behalf of breweries. That's how granular we get. So yeah, you know, we welcome working with everybody and anybody that pops up, but it's hard to develop a local group and have it sustainable. Be sustainable, I should say.
Kylie, thank you so much for clarifying so much this evening, because, like, you know, last week's chat was just us 2 dickheads just banging on about stuff and not being particularly well informed, but it's great to have you on the show to sort of help to set the record straight and that sort of thing, and we really appreciate it and that sort of thing. So Kylie, thank you.
Yes, that was excellent. Thank you, Kylie. Much appreciated.
See ya. Nice to see you, Dan.
See you later.
Have a great evening. Cheers.
Bye.
Can I wee?
Yeah, you can wee.
Man, that was really good.
Yeah, that was good. She was great.
That just set the record straight for me on so many different things. Are you drinking wine now?
I only have 1 beer, so
you literally just spoke to the CEO of the Independent Brewers Association. Now you're drinking wine.
That is true, but we spoke about wine, and I did have a beer before. So
good. I got a Hawker's. You want to hear a funny story?
Sure.
So this Hawker's Hazy IPA that I'm currently drinking was the last can of Hawker's in Common Ground Cellars.
Oh.
Hawker's beer ever. Sold out.
Oh, right. What do you mean? Like, as in this week?
As in, I went down there this afternoon trying to find some Hawker's, and there was 1 can left.
Oh, because people are buying it.
IPA. Because people are buying it.
In support, do you think?
And that Californicator that I just had was delicious as well.
Nice.
So, yeah. That was a great chat, though. I was really, sometimes, like, you know us and our fucking dead wrong policy. It's like,
Yeah.
we can talk opinions and make shit up, but when you hear it from the source, it kind of changes your perspective on it and that sort of thing. So that was really good of Kylie to come on.
Yeah, no, I think it was good because I know what that's like when you listen to people talk about you or talk about what you're doing, and you're kind of like in the back of your mind, you're like, no, that's not true. That's not true. And it just sort of pisses you off. But
Yeah.
she didn't seem pissed off at all. She was just
No, not
providing
at
a lot of
all.
good
It was
information.
good.
So
She just filled in the gaps and a lot of missing pieces that you and I had and that sort of thing, me in particular. And it was good to get that that backfill of missing pieces of information, that sort of thing. I feel like I'm missing the comms though,
well,
and
that's
and
the thing
she
I was wondering about because every week we do the podcast, I check the IBA
yeah
news thing on their site because I look at all the news site because this is what we do. We talk about the news.
mm,
I very rarely get anything from the IBA
yeah
blog or news site.
yeah
So I don't know if I'm going to the wrong
probably
place.
a topic for a future conversation, that sort of thing. I think IBA having a fucking podcast is a great idea. Like the NBAA have their podcast, which is very technical in nature, but I think for the how much does it cost us to do this podcast?
But I fully understand what she's saying about just
The
you get
time
people
and
coming in as
people, you got to pay
volunteers and they're
people to do it.
keen,
Yeah,
and all of a sudden they leave 3 months later. It's volunteers is just impossible.
it's hard. Yeah, you'd
Super
have to
hard.
pay.
So
I mean, like
you would.
I volunteer to spend a couple of hours a week on a Thursday with you, and it's hard.
Yeah. Would you do it if the IBA paid you $30? I don't know. I mean, other industries do it for sure.
Yes, yes, it's interesting. It's interesting. Maybe we can help. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I do sort of worry. Like, I think the Brews News bit where they were super critical all the time. I don't know. I don't know if that helps too much. I just think just the telling of the stories is really good. It's like this episode we had today. Like, you don't really know until you talk to the person who's kind of in
Correct.
control of it all, and you get it from the horse's mouth. And that's the part of the Brews News podcast that I used to like when they interviewed the brewers and told the stories and whatnot.
Yeah, indeed.
I did put in the group questions for Kylie, and I only
I saw Formula One questions in there.
Right, it was absolute shite in there, so I ignored it.
I'm glad we didn't ask her any Formula One questions.
Yeah, so I ignored it. That was the reason. So if anyone's offended, because then I looked at the end of the chat and I noticed there is actually one or two good, legitimate comments in there. But I wasn't going back there after
That's
an hour
fine.
and 15 minutes of talking about.
Thank you for whoever of the 12 posted those questions. Thank you. Sorry we missed them. They got lost in the Formula One questions. We weren't prepared to ask Kylie. So
I also have my own dead wrong. So last week I mentioned that I couldn't find the Aussie Beer Voyage on the Apple Podcast app, and we were talking about that.
It's there, isn't it?
It's definitely there because Adam Shell immediately texted to me after the show.
Yes, gave you the link. Yeah,
gave me the link. So that's a little dead wrong for me from last week. I mean, it's already been over an hour. Do you want to? Is there anything else to talk about? We can do Hendo Reacts and then wrap it up if you want.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, we know the news this week. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
So yeah, all right. Let me bring this over to.
Just quickly on the news, I did talk to him. I don't know if you've spoken to Mazen, but he's obviously right in the middle of this whole.
I have spoken to Mazen.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, did I tell you what he said when I spoke to him on the phone?
No.
So I sent him a text message on the day the VA was announced and that sort of thing, and he rang me back straight away because that's Mazen. And
he does.
And
that.
I love him. I love him to bits and that sort of thing. And I asked him if he would come on the show to sort of explain the situation and that sort of thing. And he said, "Look, if I can, I will. And as soon as I can, I will come on the show and I'll explain the situation." So
yes,
we're not going to. So you and I are not going to pass comment about hawkers or big shed VAs or anything like that. I think that the thing that I find unique about the Big Shed VA is they've been very active on social media about the VA. The thing that I've admired and respected about the Hawkers VA is that they've upped the business as usual social media stuff, and all the barrel age releases and all that sort of stuff. And I think in this particular situation, nothing more needs to be said, but Mazen has indicated to me that he may like to come on the show later to explain the circumstances around when he's able to, because you have to understand that in his situation at the moment, he is not technically a director of his company, so he can't speak on behalf of his company and that sort of thing. And it's a straight up legal requirement and that sort of thing. So when he's able to, he's indicated that he would. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. Let's see.
Yeah, that's good. And obviously Madsen's obviously a friend of ours, so that one's a painful one to see, but also the Big Shed guys are previous guests of the show as well.
Exactly. And you know, and I've done a lot of work with the Big Shed boys, particularly, you know, last year in 2022 and that sort of thing. And that both of those this week were particularly, because they're friends that we speak to quite frequently. That was a hard pill to swallow. So yeah.
Right. A lot of Hendo reacts because I think we skipped it last week and I had a few saved up, so you can do a fast.
Are we going to get copyright struck for this shit or what?
Can you do the special backgroundy thing you did last time? That was cool.
Yeah, I can do that. Do I just share sound? Share sound.
Yeah, always.
Do I do the thing?
That's it. That one.
Do that one?
Yeah.
Or this one? Can you see that already?
Yeah, I can see it. That's cool.
Should I do that one?
Yeah, I like that one.
Okay. Which? How am I looking?
Yeah, there we go. That's cool.
There we go. We're looking good. It's my birthday today. I turned 50.
Yes, happy birthday, Henry. I meant to tell that to Kylie, and I just completely didn't get the opportunity to. But you got the happy birthday from me, so that'll do.
Thank you. Coming on Saturday?
100%. I wouldn't miss your 60th for the world.
Fuck. Who's next?
Hey, mate. Just a MIDI, thanks.
MIDI? What the hell's a MIDI? Is it mid-straight?
Oh!
You thought your teacher was hot.
I think he means a pot.
A what?
I get it. It's called a 10, guys.
Hey, you mean handle? You talking schooners?
Guys, these are schooners.
Nah, they are pints.
What? I'm gonna need another one now.
Here?
The biggest one you've got.
You'll grab a pint? Yeah.
Ooh, that seems a bit big for me.
I'll grab a pint. Oh, you mean an imperial pint?
Ew, what is wrong?
I'm gonna call him Mum.
We're normal in South Australia. I'm also here.
P-I-N-T.
Can I get a half pint?
Oh, the soundtrack was good too. That was very good. Who are these guys?
I've no idea. I don't even know how. Some people send me these, which is good. So if you're listening and you have a good one to send, slide into my DMs on TikTok.
Yeah.
Adam Shell sends me some shit.
Yeah, he's good. All right, here we go. Instagram. What the? It's a couch.
It's a roller coaster bar.
Are they just sitting there? Is it a TV?
No, they're sitting on a roller coaster having beers and durries and shit.
Interesting. I don't know what's going on there. All right, TikTok, here we go. Put it on my phone. Oh, Jack Daniel's Apple. Whiskey ASMR. Adam Shell would have sent this to you. You know how hard it is to make those clear ice cubes?
Oh my God, it looks extremely hard. I have no idea.
Fuck.
I just like the sound effects on these things, like that shaving. That was amazing.
That's ASMR, mate.
I love that. Love that
People
shit.
jerk off to this shit.
Wow, I don't know about that.
I haven't bought the apple yet. Oh, that looks delicious, though.
How good does that look?
That looks delicious. Adam Shell would be doing this right now. He's the cocktail making champion of Australia.
Yeah, I should
is that soda water or is that lemonade?
But I assume this is that.
Soda water?
This to me.
Is that soda water?
See, he's going to pull it out. He doesn't know. He's just
No, he's mixing up the
separating,
spirit.
mixing. Yeah.
That looks bloody delicious. Oh,
Okay.
you can hear him drink.
Yeah, he just got a little gulp noise. That's it. His whole channel's ice and liquor.
That was excellent. That was so good. Fuck. All right. This is why I'm not on TikTok.
One of your number one is Beer Never Broke My Heart.
Combs fan or no?
What?
And
You're a
on
Luke Combs
stage,
fan?
You shotgun beat.
Yes.
I want you to show me.
This
I don't know who
is,
this is.
Performed by professionals.
Luke Combs?
No, to do that.
No.
Oh, you did that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fucking
You
legend.
never
He's
broke
a
it?
country music singer.
No, okay.
Not yet.
So can I
I've heard of
try?
him.
Sure, if you want to. Might spray though.
He's teaching this
Ankle?
young
Hello,
journalist
Bart
how to
Can.
do a shotgun.
I put some lipstick. I'm sorry.
That's all good. Okay, so
So-
you have a key here, right?
Yeah, I have a
Okay,
key.
so your air balloons, right?
Because he has a song called Beer
It's
Never Broke My
important to
Heart. And he
know
does a
the
shotgun
opportunity,
when he
but
sings
like-
it.
But like, I'm not good. I'm an amateur.
Okay, so I'll trade you
Let's
back.
go
You can have the
on
lipstick.
Okay.
So the most important thing is when you open this,
Okay.
you have to be ready to drink it because if this hole is facing the ground, the beer is just going to come out that way. So I'll go, and then you go.
This is not responsible drinking of alcohol. We should put
Yeah,
a
it's not
disclaimer.
very
but-
outside.
no, but I just because I'm
Okay,
a Luke
okay.
Combs fan, and
Wow.
look how quickly
Drink
he
it
drunk
all
that
now.
shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so go up, other way. Now cracker, and it's going to come out.
Yeah, it comes out very quick, but it's very fresh. My son will see me on TV. Will say, "Oh, mom, I was so ashamed." I know. I'm sure my son knows to do that.
Son wondering was how he was born in the first place. Anyway,
I believe that
That's
the
so
serious people listen to the first part of the episode and not the second part of the episode.
no, this is crazy. All right, next one. Here we go.
When you get to the point when I am watching a tennis final and not Silverstone, and my son, who grew up with cars obviously, is watching the cricket rather than Formula One, something is wrong with
That's those
Formula One.
eyebrows.
At the moment, Formula One says, right, Azerbaijan, Sochi, wherever it may be, we get money from those governments to stage a Formula One track there.
That's
Great.
true.
Nobody turns to the race. The grandstands are empty. The track is drivel, you can't overtake on it. Nobody watches it on TV because it's boring, because Mercedes are going to win and there won't be any overtaking. And if
I love
there
that
is, the
t-shirt.
stewards will say, oh, you shouldn't have done that, you've got to start from the back next time out. That's not sport, that's not interesting, that's not exciting, that's ridiculous. The world is full of people who will take risks, always has been. Put them in the cars, let them go wheel to wheel, don't have any stewards. I don't know, 16 races a day if that's what it takes. You start from the back if you win one. I don't care. Radicalise it. Totally change it.
How's those
Thoughts?
eyebrows? Jerry, I don't know if that's recent.
No, I think it's 2022, late 2022, when Mercedes
Yeah.
are winning everything.
Yeah. Jeremy Clarkson's eyebrows needs to trim that shit.
That's what you took away from that whole thing.
Yeah.
The eyebrows.
100%.
Okay.
All right, Facebook. Here we go. Facebook, Adam Shell. Here we go.
Oh yeah.
Hiker Brewing, 2 minutes. Home, 16
Look at the caption.
minutes.
No, look at the caption. It comes up
Every
automatically.
time I leave work, it's like my car just knows things.
It assumes he's going to hiker.
That's what's going to happen on Saturday. He's like, oh, welcome to Adam Shell's house.
Oh, hopefully he won't be driving.
I hope he's not driving.
Yeah.
He's going to be fucking drinking, I tell you what.
It's the 60th, mate. It's a big day.
There'll be Adam beer on tap. Oh,
Yeah, I can't wait to try it. I still haven't tried
Oh
it.
my
How many
God, I
notifications
saw
you got
this.
going on there, Hendo? What's going on?
Oh, wait, not going to get copyright struck. Anyway, this is the Your Mates neon sign out the front of the brewery catching on fire, and the music is Hot Stuff Baby Tonight.
Okay.
And wow, I'm glad everybody is safe first and foremost. That electrician needs to be fucking fired.
And the big fire on the ground as well. That's hectic. Look at
Yeah,
that
well,
shit.
all the plastic melted. That's the thing. I thought that shit was supposed to be fucking fireproof.
You think of the
Like-
shit that hangs around a brewery, that if there was just something near that could have been bad.
Yeah, that could have been very bad. I saw some posts from Chris McGarry afterwards, and Hep as well, saying everyone was safe. Probably the most important thing is that they took away and posted online was that they said that we learned some stuff that day, and there's some things that about our evacuation plan that was not right. We're going to fix it and prove it, and thank God it's like a relatively minor event like that, with a a neon sign so that they can actually go, right, okay, here's what I need to improve. Because one day maybe shit might go down and they need to do some real shit in a really dangerous situation and they'll be better prepared for it. So that's really cool. So yeah, I hope everything's okay. Fire your fucking electrician. Or not. I don't know. Your neon sign, make that guy. What have we got here? Facebook? Boston the Brewer. Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I've
one you
actually
would
got
have
this
seen.
one with, would you like to see this one with sound? I've got it with sound.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, you saved this? Oh, you probably have this in your training.
Oh, I've re-recorded it, so let's see here.
I'll tell you what doesn't have sound is the last 20 minutes, the 20 seconds of this podcast, which I'm going to have to edit out.
All right, here we go.
I don't want to do, and I'm not going to do. Okay, here we go.
All right, you ready? I've got this one with sound. So for those listening on audio only, this is a post done by Back Channel Brewing Company. And it's a guy who's standing in a brewery cellar who is about to get blasted with beer that's in a tank carbonated, ready to go. Let's go. Let's have a look.
Oh, this is longer
Okay.
too. Oh, is that the end of it?
That's the end of it, yeah.
That's the end, yeah.
Okay, so here's the go, right? So I take this shit really fucking seriously, right? Because I've been involved in a major workplace incident involving a pressure vessel and that sort of thing. This shit makes me feel really uncomfortable. So accidents like this don't just happen just out of the blue. Like, you didn't just walk up to the tank and flick the fucking triclover and then shit comes out of the tank and that sort of thing. There's things that went wrong in the lead up to that. Firstly, I think what happened is he was actually cleaning and rebuilt because he had the carb stone in his left hand, and he actually held on to it whilst he was knocked flat in his ass, right? And so some people were saying he got hit in the chest with the carb stone. He didn't. It was actually in his hand. He was he was cleaning the tank and he was rebuilding the tank next to it, right? You see the tank next to it? It's got the manway door open.
Yeah.
That's the tank he was working on.
Right.
Right. And he accidentally went up to the tank next to it, which is identical, and took out was a blank, like a triclover blank disc.
Yeah.
Thinking that he was taking the blank out of the tank that he was cleaning. So the things that led up to that was that there was no indication to tell that particular brewer what tank he was working on,
which is very common, isn't it?
Because there was some hoses hanging over the tank that he actually blew open. Don't use your fucking tanks. Store hoses. Hoses.
What do you mean it was
have a home.
covering up like an identification number or something?
Well, no. The identification number is above it, and that's the other thing. Those tank number identification things are well above eye height.
Not eye level. Yeah,
they're not at eye level, right?
Lots of breweries don't even have an identification.
Exactly, right? So he's misidentified the tank, right? He's not seen the tank number because it's too fucking high. He's reached through hoses that are hanging on a tank that should not be stored there, right? Your vessels are for storing beer, not fucking hoses, right? And the other thing that happened there was, if I can rewind it, I'll just replay it. Oh, here we go. Right, so he's misaligned the tank that he's misidentified the tank that he's working on. There's no sign on the tank that he's cleaning to say that it's being cleaned. So that's another thing that's helped him to sort of misidentify the tank. He's not wearing any safety glasses. He got blasted in the chest with a shitload of beer with probably a lot of alcohol in it. And he's lucky he's not, with such pressure, he's lucky he's not blind.
Yeah.
Right?
Pressure knock him across out of view almost.
Like, look at him. Before this accident happens, he's reaching through a reel of hose, right, on the wrong tank. He's had a momentary lapse of fucking judgment. He can't see the fucking tank identified.
There's a lot of shit
because
around
they're
there too. It's pretty
not
tight.
eye level.
There's a
There's a
hose
lot
on the
exactly.
floor.
It's a
There's
tight space and that sort of
seat on
thing.
the floor.
He's got his
Thing.
PPE beanie on. Thank fuck for that. But he's not wearing any fucking safety glasses. If you're in a wet area in a brewery and you're not wearing safety glasses, something wrong with you. He's then got he's opened a tank. He's not greeted the tank. Okay, so every time you go to work on a tank, you greet the tank. And by what I mean by greet the tank is you both check the pressure gauge to make sure it's 0, or you look at all the valves like the blow-off valve, or look at all the valves to see if there's a valve open. The tank's not locked up.
Right.
Because if the tank's locked up, it means it can hold pressure, therefore it's a hazard. If there's a valve open, then you're okay, right? It's not pressurized. And he hasn't greeted the tank. Every time you go to do something on a tank, even if it's the 10th time of the day, you greet the tank. Right? And he hasn't done that. That blast, the pressure that was in that tank is phenomenal. And the other thing that he's done is after the fact of the beer coming out of the tank, he's tried to get the carbonation stone into the port that he's blown open, took the blank out of, right? Incidentally, he's lucky he hasn't fucking
fucking head injury.
He's lucky he hasn't killed him, either broken a rib or given him an injury on the back of his skull because he hit a tank and that sort of thing. Look at the force of the beer coming out of that tank.
Crazy. It's barely even buckling. It was
I
horizontal.
don't know. That's a lot of pressure in that tank.
Oh yeah.
Right? And that's not gravity pressure. That's fucking head pressure in that tank, right? Anyway, so here's what he does. He gets up, he picks up the carbonation stone, and he tries to stop the flow with the carb stone. It ain't happening. Old mate in the orange fucking jumper there, and he's also wearing his PPE beanie, by the way. Must be cold wherever the fuck Back Channel Brewing is. He's decided, fuck this, I've had enough, I'm out of here. And so if you are a brewer and you find yourself in this situation where you have a tank blowing out uncontrolled, maybe you've taken the back triclover off a valve or something like that, every brewery should have hanging on the wall an open butterfly valve with a triclover gasket glued to it. Right? This is your oh fuck valve. Let's call it the oh fuck valve, right? Because if you find yourself in this situation, you're not putting a carb stone back in that port. You're not putting a butterfly valve on that port if it's closed. And the only way you're shutting off the flow of that beer is to put an open valve on that port and then closing the valve. Make sense?
Yeah.
Right. So every brewery must have hanging on the wall an open butterfly valve with a triclover gasket glued to it, right? Because if the beer's flowing out, you're not going to get the fucking gasket in, right? So glued, and also right next to it a clamp, okay? And so if this shit happens, you grab that valve with the gasket glued to it, you put it over the port, and then you put the gasket on, then you close the valve. That's called your oh fuck valve.
Nice.
And that should be on the wall in every brewery.
And no brewery would ever know that unless they had some sort of
show.
education process like we have, where you train people in this kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Because before that, it was you're just guessing. Brewers would just do what they were taught.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
look, sorry to get all fucking heavy about the
no, I think it's really important.
The thing, but like I've been in an accident with pressure. Oh God, it's so preventable. It's so fixable when it happens and that sort of thing. And I'm glad this guy's okay. That's super, super important. Anyway, is that the second last one?
Yep.
Am I the last one? USA Today. Here we go. Gin and Juice Redux, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg collab on premixed cocktail 30 years after hit song. Gin and Juice.
Snoop Dogg is the only
Until
person we follow on Instagram now. He's going to be
Yeah.
spamming us with gin and juice. Could be our next sponsored beverage.
Apricot, citrus, melon, passion fruit. Like seltzer.
Yeah. The gin.
With Snoop
And
Dogg.
juice. Mind you, I've tried
Rolling
Snoop Dogg's
down.
wine and it is
How's the
real
song
bad.
go? How the lyrics go? Rolling down the street,
sipping on gin and juice.
sipping on gin and juice.
Laid back. With my mind
With
and
my
my money
mind
and
on
my
my
money
money
and
and
my
my money
mind.
on my mind.
That's it. It's got to be better than his rosé. That is dog shit. It's real bad.
There you go.
All right. Good work. Good way to spend your 60th birthday. Solid.
Thanks. Yeah, well, welcome to the future.
What an
I'll see
upfront
you on
make it.
Saturday, mate. It's going to be good. I've spent the I spent all day today digging out lots of old photos. So those who know me well don't actually know me well. And what I'm really looking forward to on Saturday night is that there's going to be a lot of people from a lot of different chapters of my life, right? There's going to be friends from when I used to work in IT, friends from university when I was like, this is like 1991, that sort of thing. There's going to be friends from when I was a tour guide in Europe. There's going to be friends from, the beer. Beer is just a small chapter of my life and that sort of thing. And I'm very grateful for having made it to 50. There's going to be a lot of photos, and you're in there, Dan. Sorry, on the TV screen. That's going to show a lot of different chapters of my life. And my advice to you, Dan, and to Erin as well, is you'll have your wristband on so you can get free beers.
Oh.
And if you see someone you don't know who's wearing it, go and have a chat to that person.
All right.
Don't fucking just stick to the beer people. Go chat to the people who you don't know that are wearing the wristband, and go and meet someone from a very different chapter of my life, and you'll probably get an interesting story out of it.
So are you going to have to do some sort of PowerPoint presentation? What are you doing with all these?
Yeah,
photos?
it's going to be TV screen. There's just going to be photos going through. I've got about 600 photos that are just going to rotate through, and you're going to see some really interesting stuff that I have not revealed to even people that I'm very close with.
Wow.
Because I think it's important that people see at such a milestone that they see these different things that you've not seen.
I feel like I've seen enough, but all right, I'll take you.
No. It's fun. It's fun.
Okay.
You'll see me in a leather G-string.
Oh wow. Okay. Sounds good. All right, love it, mate. Enjoy the rest of your birthday. I'll see you on Saturday.
See you Saturday, mate. See you.